Hello, and a very warm welcome from myself, Jane Simmonds. I am here coming to you from London. You can see I'm coming to you from the University College London, and I'm going to be doing an interactive session now. So I'm now just going to start sharing my screen, if that's okay with the organisers. Okay, so this session is all about staying active. And I put a little caveat on the end of that, which is one step at a time. Some of you might have heard me yesterday, but I'm Jane. I'm an associate professor at the University College London, and I'm a clinical specialist physiotherapist working at the London Hypermobility Unit. These are my disclosures. You can just take a moment just to run through those. But what I can say to you is that I have no conflicts of interest to report to you. Now, this session is going to be an interactive one. So we're going to be using menti.com again. But the aim of this session this evening, is to be able to share some creative insights to help young people with hypermobility spectrum disorders and EDS to be physically active, and to inspire and build confidence for young people and their families. So they're the two broad aims. Now, I need to start the session by understanding who's in the audience. I know that there are 266 people signed on according to the screen in front of me, but could you go to menti.com and use the code 7823406 so that I can start to understand who I'm talking to at the moment. So I can see that there's quite a lot of young people. There are parents or caregivers, there's some friends or relatives, and quite a few health or exercise professionals. So we're going to just leave the Menti running for a moment so we can really get a full idea of who the audience is. So keep popping those. Yep, just keep coming into the Menti. Now, it's lovely to see that there are lots of young people here, as well as the parents, but also that there are some other health professionals and exercise professionals here, and also some friends and relatives there to support. So we'll just keep it running for a little while. We're sort of halfway through the audience at the moment, but it'd be really lovely just to really get that idea of who's online. So just leave it running for just another little bit of time. So remember, the menti.com, the code is 7823406. I'm really thrilled to know that there are a lot of young people listening in, but also, of course, the parents and others. So thanks very much for contributing to that interaction. So now I want to ask you, all of you who are listening in today, what do you think are the benefits of physical activity? So if you could just type in on the Menti, more energy, strength, sleeping better. Yep. Look at that. Lots of those things, stronger muscles, stamina, energy, health, less pain. Great, look at all those great ideas coming in. Fantastic. Okay, so some really great ideas coming through there. And, clearly you've got some ideas of what the benefits of physical activity are, and here they are starting to scroll through now. Mental health improves, improved energy, less pain, improved well-being. Great, fantastic. Okay, so from what we know from the research, you've already been able to answer a lot of these questions, but the research tells us, and there's been quite a lot of research, or a lot of research that's been done certainly over the last 20 years about this, because physical activity is thought to be so important, is that physical activity can improve your mental health through the release of chemicals that can improve your mood and make you feel more relaxed and more confident. So it's good for anxiety, good for depression. It can help your thinking, learning, and memory. So exercise stimulates your body to release proteins and other chemicals that improve the structure and function of your brain. And I think it's, I often talk to my patients about this, particularly those young people who are coming up to an exam time and they're saying they're feeling a bit brain fog and their memory's not good. And I say to them, well, did you know that even a little acute small bout of exercise can actually stimulate the hippocampus where the memory is? And there's actually been a lot of research done on this now. So really good for stimulating memory, but also clearing your head. So exercise can help to do that. It can improve your coordination and strengthen your muscles to protect your joints, improve your balance, and can reduce sprains and falls. And it can improve your sleep. And some of you mentioned that. Exercise can help you to fall asleep faster and stay asleep longer. It can improve digestion, improve bladder and bowel function, help you manage your pain. And part of that is through distraction, but it can also facilitate pain modulation through the release of various chemicals. It can improve energy levels. It can strengthen bones. So regular exercise can help young people build strong bones, and it reduces risk of some cancers, and it can increase your chances of living a longer life. So there's just, a summary of the main well-known benefits of physical activity. And lots of you were reporting those in the previous Mentimeter. Now, my question to you is, though, if we know all the benefits of physical activity, what prevents young people with HSD or EDS being physically active? Can I ask you? Okay, here we go. Pain, fatigue, fear, depression, worsening of symptoms, exhaustion, injury, dizziness, laziness, job loss, worsening fears, embarrassment, heart palpitations, lack of motivation, busyness, comparing to peers, nausea, POTS, low self-esteem, failure, no spoons left, shortness of breath, caring for others and exhausted, fears coming through, lack of energy. Keep on going. Let's keep building this word cloud, because we're going to work our way through the word cloud through the course of this presentation. Keep it going. Lack of function. It's okay to repeat some if you've seen others. Humiliation. Lack of low impact options. Lethargy. Brain fog. Too busy. Fear of humiliation. Loneliness. Obligations. Fatigue afterwards for days, inflammation, procrastination, not good enough. Any more? Keep them coming in. Keep thinking through what these barriers are, the things that you've experienced yourself, and also perhaps some of the things that you know about your children or some of your patients if you're a health or exercise professional. Okay, So we're building a really strong cloud now. And what we can see coming out there is clearly pain, fatigue, and fear are three of the very common biggest ones that people are repeatedly saying. And that actually fits very well with some of the research that I've done myself when I've surveyed people with with hypermobility spectrum disorders and EDS. These are some of the big things that have come through. Plus, there are other ones that are mentioned here. So let's move forward and think. Now, the barriers to physical activity that have been reported in the literature marry up very closely to the ones that you've all just described. And thank you so much for making those contributions. But the ones that I want to talk about, and we're going to unpick these barriers, there are some misconceptions about physical activity and what it is. We're going to talk about the fear of injury and pain and perhaps how to overcome that. The fatigue, the not enough time, the low motivation, the fact for some people they think it might be quite boring, and for others that they don't know what to do. I have a lot of parents coming to the clinic coming actually just wanting some advice on, just wondering what would be safe, what would be a safe option, and other young people who want to know the same. So we need to tackle each of these barriers. We can list them all and we can know what they are, but actually if we can unpick it, then maybe we can move forward. So firstly, I want to talk about some of the misconceptions about physical activity. And that is, firstly, just to say what the definition of it is, that physical activity is any bodily movement which uses energy above the resting metabolism. So anything that you do above lying down asleep is going to be physical activity. And there are variations in this energy expenditure. Now, doing something is a lot better than doing nothing. So anything that raises the metabolic level is physical activity. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a sport. So it can be, as you can see, we've got some pictures here. It can be sitting, if you're someone who's in a wheelchair, doing some cooking. If you're someone that's at the moment in a situation where you're having to spend a lot of time in bed because of the fatigue or for the pain or because of your POTS or because of your illness, then you can do some very gentle exercises on the bed or physical activity just on the bed. It can be walking. It can be cooking. It could be flying a kite. It could be riding a horse. It could be getting involved with drama and the performing arts. It could be dancing, and it could be doing activity in water. That's just some examples of the range of physical activities that we can be doing. But doing something is going to be good for us. Now, a lot of people worry that they're not necessarily meeting the government guidelines. So what I say to that is the government guidelines that we should be, if you're a young person, that you should be exercising or doing physical activity of a moderate level up to 1 hour a day, and also doing a couple of days where there's resistance, some kind of resistant activity. Now that is the end goal. Okay, so that's the end goal. The beginning goal is to begin with something. And that's why I said it's about one step after another. And just recognizing that doing something that raises your resting metabolic level is getting active. Now, the fear of injury and pain is another big barrier. So a lot of people think, oh, goodness, the fear is just too great. And they've been through these experiences and they've tried doing something, and actually they felt they got injured or the pain's got worse. So what I'll say to you there is that you need to start to spend time understanding your body and start with a physical activity which feels safe to you and build up slowly. So if you're someone that's really, struggling and perhaps at the moment spending a lot of time at home, it might be doing some crafts or starting with some cooking. It could be taking a short walk, or it could be, some exercises while you're lying down. But the most important thing here is to start one step at a time and just do a little bit, and then you can take the next step. Tackling fatigue. Now, this is a big one, and it was one that you reported as well in the Menti, in your feedback to us. So one important thing about if fatigue is a big barrier to you is you will have heard probably about pacing. And when we talk about pacing, it's really about just recognizing that you don't want to use all your energy up with just one activity. So when you're thinking about the range of physical activities that you could do, and it's good to have a range, you don't have to do all one thing, that you know that there are some red activities which are the most difficult, the most challenging, the ones that perhaps, are raising the bar. There are some activities that are a bit easier. There are amber ones, and that there are some green ones, which are the easiest. So if you're having a really sort of tiring day or your pain's quite bad, then you might just think, well, actually, I'm just going to do something that's quite easy today. I'm going to do my simple physical activity. And then there are other days when you might find that you can do something a little bit more challenging. But you also need to think of yourself as a battery pack. Okay, and that, you need to have time to recharge and fill up your battery, and you don't want to use it all at one go. You do need time to recharge. So do a little bit and don't drain the battery completely. Leave a little bit in store so that you're not exhausted for days to come afterwards. Not enough time. And this is something that, this is talking about young people, it's talking about adults as well. A lot of people think they haven't got enough time because of their studies or because of their work or because of, other things that they've got to do. But being physically active, and we've just said all of the benefits, the massive amount of benefits there are, it needs to be a top priority because inactivity is another pandemic. So this is where you need to start to look and to plan and to manage. And again, this is something that I'll spend time with the families that I work with, is just, making some plans and setting small achievable goals and making a plan. And you can see that symbol there on the left-hand side, that a goal without a plan is just a wish. So make a goal, but also think, how am I going to put that into action? How am I going to put these little bits of physical activity into my daily routine? Because having a routine also helps, because a routine builds a habit. And the other tip here is to involve family and friends, because we know from our research as well that by doing it with others, and particularly if your families can get involved, then actually we're more likely to be able to stick at doing these things. So it's not very nice for people to just have to go off and do their physical activity if others aren't. So try and make it a family affair or with friends. Make it something that can be done as a family. Now, low motivation and being boring, this is something that, I really found interesting over the years, is that people have said that physiotherapists can be boring. And do you know what? I think it's possibly true that some of the exercises can be boring. But the idea of being physically active doesn't need to be boring. And I think physical therapists need to be less boring and creative with the things that we work with people. So use your creativity. I know from working with families and children over the many years is that they're often very creative. So in part of the planning is to create, a family list of fun activities and things you enjoy, and making a list of things, of high energy ones and some low energy ones, so that you can draw on something to do on a regular basis, so that being physically active becomes part of your usual routine. And then the final one, which was, I don't know what physical activity to do. And this is when parents and young people come and ask, well, what would be safe to do? So the first thing I would say is, in general, that to avoid high impact sport and activities, particularly if you're not fit or you're in a lot of pain. So when we think about high impact, so that'll be things like, lots of running. It might be particularly contact sports. It's not to say that people can't ever achieve these things, because there are a lot of hypermobile people who are involved with impact sports and high levels, but you need to develop the strength and the resilience to be able to do that, and you need to build up slowly. So it's generally a good idea to avoid the high impact sports definitely at the beginning, if you're starting to get physically active and coming back from a flare up or, you know, getting through a really difficult period of time. Pick something that you enjoy. That's the first thing. That's the motivator. Look towards activities which integrate the mind and the body and help with body awareness, stability and control. And I've, you know, put some pictures there on the right-hand side of some activities that the young people that I work with have got involved in. So in terms of, you know, drama and dancing. And there are many dance schools and drama schools now. And I'm thinking in the UK of the Chicken Shed company, which actually actively promotes this diversity, so that it doesn't mean that the person has to be running around on stage the whole time. Sometimes there's someone who's sitting down, so they can have some adaptations. Things like learning Tai Chi, very popular. Things like the climbing wall. So young people, you know, actually in a harness, in this kind of, you know, climbing activity, which uses the whole kinetic chain, Pilates type exercises. These are all ones that are really, that we think are really helpful. People have reported being helpful. And then research and seek advice from a physical therapist or an occupational therapist. So I think get the advice as well. Now, I just wanted to share with you a few stories, some inspirational stories. So we heard from the last speaker that's really good. People really like to hear stories from people who are similar to them. So I've just briefly run through some of these inspirational stories of some of the patients I've worked with. A young person aged 6 with leg pain and hand pain, fatigue, and could walk just 3 minutes. Started on a 4-wheel scooter, just doing a couple of minutes, and actually gradually progressed and later went onto the climbing wall and graduated walking to school, and their handwriting also improved, particularly with getting involved with that gripping. Young person aged 10, constipated, pain, fatigue, walking in the house, advice about constipation. Well, aged 18, this person came back wanting a fitness test because they're going to join the army, so people can go a long way. A young person aged 12 with complex regional pain and foot pain and fatigue. She started by growing a plant. That was her first thing. Then she did handicrafts and pool activities. Aged 18, started an art degree. And finally, a young person aged 15, bedbound for 6 months, had a virus, developed POTS, started on a graduated bike for 30 seconds and progressed to 20 minutes on the bike, and then set walking targets of 1 house at a time, and graduated, returned to school, now in the final year. So what one small step will you take tomorrow to start to be physically active? Let's just get you into the Mentimeter. 78, 23, 40, 60. Someone's going to walk. Walk more. Good. Walk more, daily walk. Make an exercise schedule. Just dance. Oh, jog a mile, that's quite a lot. Walk, pedals, get out, climb stairs. Fantastic. So you're all popping in those ideas that you can stay motivated with over the next period of time, which is brilliant. Okay, so keep plopping those in. And I'm just going to come to my final slide, which is to say some final thoughts here. Start small and be realistic. Use your imagination. Be creative. Everyone's unique. Don't compare yourself with others. Some activity is better than nothing. 1 step at a time is what it takes. And share your successes. Get out there on the social media and tell everyone else that you've done your little bit to stay motivated. So thank you very much for listening. Thank you for the EDS Society for inviting me. I hope that you found that helpful, and I'm looking forward to talking to you shortly in the Q&A. Thanks very much.